Hello everybody. Today is Fruitful Friday. So glad to be back with you guys again. I am inspirational author, life speaker, and a surrender rope of hope, Angelina Squire. So today, let's look at the Word of God and allow the story of Nehemiah to help us and to teach us how to weather our life storms. We're going to look into the book of Nehemiah, and we're going to see how we can come out victorious through our life storms. We're going to also discuss three types of oppositions, or three types of situations that Nehemiah also faced. We're going to also look into what type of spirit do we need in order to remain standing within life's various storms. And again, we're going to start from Nehemiah chapters 1 through 4. So when you have time, read through those first 4 chapters. Nehemiah had a calling, and our calling will always point us to our purpose. It gets us moving, right? It stirs us up, give us purpose. A calling will always connect us to something greater, something much larger than ourselves. So your calling can come from any need that moves you. Now, your calling is not going to always look like someone that you know. For some of you, it may be in ministry, and some of you, it won't be. But whatever it is, we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose while we are here on earth. And that calling can come from any need that moves you. Now, Nehemiah was moved by the need to build a wall. And this wall was to serve as a protection for the people. But why was this wall important? Why did the people need to have this wall built? It was because without a wall, a city and the people was just like, sitting ducks. They were vulnerable to getting robbed, they were left open to get harassed by the enemies and even killed. So this rebuilding of this devastated wall was very important to Nehemiah. In chapter 4, we will find 3 things that he faced as he tried, and not only as he tried, but as he continued to work on that which was important to him, the very thing that God had called him to complete. And you may have experienced some of the same things that we're going to talk about, just as he endured. And number 1, he faced being ridiculed. Number 2, he also faced being threatened. And number 3, he faced discouragement. Have you ever started to do something and you finally built up, that courage, that strength, the nerve to go ahead to do it, and then sometimes immediately there comes someone to perhaps say to you, what do you think you're doing? Who told you that you can do that? Maybe you have come across some people that begin to mock you. They've even made fun of you, made jokes, even laughed in your face, for some of you. You have to believe and know within yourself that nothing is impossible for God, right? If he is living within you, then that very thing that people telling you that's impossible for someone like you to accomplish, well, that lie that they're telling you that you can't do it, you will begin to say, I can do that. Because it's no longer I who live, but Christ that lives within me, right? See, the enemy will always use people or use things to mock you, to criticize you, to put you down. And he used this to get you to quit. Because he wants to drive you to a place of feeling worthless. And anytime that this happens, anytime that the enemy succeeds at doing this, your dreams, your goals, your visions, your purpose will seem as if it is more than you can accomplish. So what do we need to do in the face of being ridiculed, mocked, made fun of? Do we attack the mockers? Absolutely not. If you want to come out with total victory. See, we have to do what Nehemiah did. And he prayed. And you can read that in Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 4 through 6. Did he get angry? Of course he did. But look what he done with his anger. Look at what he did with his anger. He didn't take it out on those who mocked him or made fun of him. But he gave his anger and frustrations to God instead. But what I also love about this is that in order to overcome ridicule, he also reconnected the people to the purpose of the task at hand. He says, we are building this wall. So we have to remind ourselves and stay on course. We have to remind ourselves the importance of the task, the importance of why we are doing what we are doing. When you do this, it will eliminate the enemy from drawing you away from what's important. Life point number 1. Just like this wall, the enemy does not want you to build walls of protection around your very own life. He wants your walls, your protection, everything around you. He wants it to stay torn down, because then he can continue winning and attacking you and controlling your life. But with God's help, see, you can begin to build those walls of protection around your life so you and your families are protected. When I looked at that part, I also received within my spirit that there are some who have built walls of protection around their family by praying, being that godly example before their family, but then they turn around with the same mouth and they have spoken things over themselves and over their family, and they have now demolished their own wall of protection, and now the enemy has creeped his way in and he is wreaking havoc on the family the way he desires to. But with God's help, you can begin to rebuild this wall again. Number 2, not only did Nehemiah face, being ridiculed, he also were faced with threats. If you're feeling threatened on today, regardless if it's because of people or a particular situation, see, the enemy, he always threatens us because he knows that you that's watching me right now, he knows that you and your purpose matters. So that thing that which you are doing, and he always creates a situation to stop you, he's not creating that situation because you can't do it. He's doing it because he knows that it has some importance attached to it. And he knows that you can do it. See, he knows that once you can see beyond the distractions that comes against you, you can see beyond the enemy mocking you and ridiculing you, belittling you, then he knows that that thing that God has given you to do, guess what? It's going to encourage and strengthen and build up someone else. That's what it's all about. It's not just about you and what you're going to accomplish. It's about your coming out for someone else as well. So the enemy is threatening you because you're actually a threat to him and his evil works. Life point number 2. And this is very important. People who do not want you to progress. They are mainly those who don't want to progress themselves. And this is why they become angry every time you progress. Every time you come up with something new, something different, they become angry, right? So we have to get intentional, just like the Jews were. As they built the wall, Nehemiah chapter 4 verses 16 through 18, each builder, not only did they have their tools that they needed to physically complete their task, but they also had their sword at their sides as they worked. As they worked. So you need to let prayer and your focus on God and his purpose for you and your life be in your possession as you continue working. That means you continue to move forward. Even when being ridiculed and mocked. Even when no one else believes in you. Even when being threatened. You continue to build. And when you do that, God is continuing to build you as well. So you have to keep moving forward. And the third thing that Nehemiah faced, and I know a lot of you can relate to this, he faced discouragement. And I think that's one of the biggest things that born again believers struggle with, being discouraged. In Nehemiah chapter 4 verses 10, in this part of the text, the discouragement was happening to the people of God. It was happening amongst the people of God. So this further lets us know that yes, born again believers do face discouragement. And when discouragement comes, what happens? Our confidence and our enthusiasm, what? We lose it. It grows cold. That fire that we once had, it gets dim. And in most situations, it ultimately burns out. And that's the point where we give up. And that's where the enemy defeats us. See, he doesn't defeat us when the discouragement comes in. He defeats us when we allow it to stop us from moving forward. In Nehemiah chapter 4 verses 14, he teaches us to shift our perspectives by focusing on the Lord who has called us to our work, and not focus on the opposition that rises up against us. That's where you get your strength and your power to keep going when obstacle arises. When you're doing what God has told you and called you to do, you will keep your eyes on him and not the opposition. So don't faint. Don't lose sight in the middle of your task, in the middle of your purpose. And that is the spirit of a conqueror. You don't stop. You don't give up in the middle of your task. You keep going when people are laughing at you. They're taunting you. They're saying, you can't write that book. No one knows you. How can you impact someone's life and you have children that are in jail? How can you empower another woman and yet you come from a treacherous past? Or for the men out there, you may hear, well, how can you help another brother, another young man out, and you are ex-convict, or you have even murdered someone, you have even done drugs? How are you going to change someone else's life? You do this by not fainting, by not stopping, by keeping your focus on God, by keeping your focus on the importance of why he chose you to do what he has called you to do. And when you keep going, like I said, in spite of all of this, you will then be operating in, moving in, and living in a spirit of a conqueror. Romans 8:37, for it tells us that we are more than a conqueror. And a conqueror is mighty. So if the word of God is telling us that we're even more than that, do you realize the power that holds for you? And lastly, the enemy cannot stop anyone that's determined to win. I want to say that again. The enemy cannot stop anyone that's determined to win. Nehemiah, he never stopped praying. He never stopped praying. So my sisters and my brothers, that's how you're going to build a wall of protection around you, around your life, around everything that's connected to you. Opposition will come when you move forward. Every time you take a step towards doing what God has told you to do, opposition will come. But don't lose focus again. And sometimes we get distracted when something is not completed at the time that we feel it should have been done. And the enemy will use that moment right there to get you to tell yourselves that you blew it. He will use that to tell you, you know, you've messed up because it's not done in your timing. And you will miss the beauty of the whole process. You will miss the beauty of the journey to even see what God has used you to do so far. Because anytime your eyes is blinded and consumed about every opposition that comes every time you step forward, You will become blinded to see again the beauty that God had already created while you kept pressing forward. If you just stop sometime and look back and not think about what you had to fight, but look at what was created when you kept going. That's your power right there. That will give you the strength that you need every day to get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other. See, anyone can have a vision. Anyone can want to do something within the earth. But when you don't have that down on the inside of you, that it becomes greater than you, that it's more important than you, you won't succeed. You'll fail, because then you're doing things in your own strength, in your own way. And we all know flesh can only go so far. But when the very essence of your life, the very essence of your heartbeat becomes, God, everything that you have called me to do, I'm going to do it regardless of what I have to face, regardless of who like it and who don't, regardless of who says I don't belong here. Because I know that I can handle it because you gave it to me. Therefore, if you gave it to me, you're going to oversee it. You're going to make sure that it comes to fruition within my life. All I have to do is just keep moving forward. And I also hear right now, some of you are discouraged because of a no. Don't you know at that very moment that you get a no, and you let that no stop you from knocking on the next door? Don't you know that next door can be your yes? So I want you to know that anytime you get a no, it's just moving doors out of your way to get you to the right door. So don't let the enemy fool you to believe that a no is all you're going to get, because see, you already got a yes. One nod from God is really all you need. Everything else will fall into place, but you got to be able to stand up like Nehemiah did in the face of opposition, ridicule, and being threatened, mocked at, laughed at. You got to keep going, because your purpose is more important than the naysayers and the opposition. So I really had fun with you all again. I enjoyed you again on another Fruitful Friday. So next week we will continue more on this, because there is so much that I received just from this alone, and I can't put it all in one video. And so I'm excited to just have blessed you all with this, because it has truly blessed my life, and I begin to apply it to my life. You know, I have to eat it first in order to give it to you all. And please, again, don't stop in the middle of your process. You're halfway there. Don't focus on, I got more to do, I got more to do, I got more to do, because then your mind will perceive the lie that the enemy wants you to believe, that it's too big for you. You can't go on. So change your perspective. Keep your focus on God. Keep the very importance of why you are doing what you're doing. You're not doing it for yourselves. And that will keep you moving in the face of whatever your situation is right now. So next week we'll come back. We'll talk more on this. And we'll talk about principles that we need to cultivate that our enemies will not be able to endure. So I will see you all next week on another Fruitful Friday. I love you guys. See you all. Be blessed.